first this hour, then, the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah is looking increasingly fragile. As thousands of people attempted to return to their homes in southern Lebanon, Israeli soldiers opened fire, killing 15 people and injuring dozens across several parts of the south. Now, earlier this weekend, Israel said that it would keep troops in the south beyond the Sunday deadline as laid out in that ceasefire agreement reached with Hezbollah last year, claiming that Lebanon has not fully enforced the terms of the deal. Take a listen to reactions from residents there.
Even if they do not let us, we will enter. We're entering with our children against everyone's will.
Don't tell us that it is forbidden to enter our villages while we have been waiting for more than a year and 4 months to be able to enter.
Well, officials in Gaza, meanwhile, have confirmed that tens of thousands of displaced civilians there are also being prevented from returning to their homes, and this in the north of the territory. Now, the Israeli military personnel have refused to allow them to cross through the barrier near Netzarim, the Netzarim corridor, over Hamas's refusal thus far to release Israeli civilian hostage Arbel Yahoud. Though she was supposed to have been freed by now, Hamas claims that she is alive and well and will be eventually liberated. So for more on situations both in Lebanon and Gaza, then we're going to speak now to Gershon Baskin, Middle East director at the International Communities Organization and a former hostage negotiator. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. So to start, Israel was supposed to withdraw from Lebanon by today. Not only is there no sign of the military withdrawing, but as we just saw, the situation is looking increasingly deadly. Is this the end of the ceasefire deal then between Israel and Hezbollah?
I don't think so. It could be, but I don't think so. I think that both sides have an interest in seeing the ceasefire hold and that the progress be made in the relations between the two parties. The Israeli claim is that the Lebanese army, which is supposed to deploy along the border, has not yet deployed. They're slow in their ability to deploy, and the government of Lebanon has not taken responsibility to ensure that Hezbollah troops will not be moving south of the Litani River, as agreed to in the ceasefire agreement. The Israelis requested from the United States, that was the mediator between Israel and Lebanon, that Israel be allowed to remain in the south until there is a full deployment of the Lebanese army there. The Americans seem to grant Israel that amount of time, a few days extra, but I don't think that the understandings have fully been reached between Israel and Lebanon.
I mean, what does this all mean for Lebanon's sovereignty? As you said there, it says that it can't deploy its own troops into the south of its own country until the Israeli army has withdrawn. That's essentially kind of implying that Israel is the one to call the shots on Lebanese territory.
Well, facing reality, Lebanon was not much of a sovereign country prior to this war, which began on October 7th of 2023. Lebanon was largely controlled by the Hezbollah militia in the country, and following a lot of damage done by Israel to Hezbollah, including the killing of its leaders, the government of Lebanon has seemed to become more sovereign than at any time in the past, at least decade. But yet it takes time to organize the army and to have the army be able to deploy along the border and defend Lebanon's borders correctly. The government of Lebanon is just being formed by the newly elected president. So these things take time. Hezbollah is still weakened, but Hezbollah is flexing its muscles now, trying to show that it remains in control, at least in parts of South Lebanon. And this is definitely possible. It could bring about the derailment of this ceasefire agreement. It's very dangerous, very fragile.
Well, the ceasefire in Gaza, sir, too, is looking just as fragile at this point. The exact same situation, at least a similar situation, is playing out with Hamas and Israel mutually accusing each other of violating the deal. Hamas was supposed to release Arbel Yahoud. They haven't. They say she's alive and will be released. What do you think Hamas is trying to achieve with this?
Well, the other thing is that Israel claimed that not only was she not released as she was supposed to be because she's a civilian and civilians were supposed to be released before soldiers, but Hamas was also supposed to deliver by last night a list of the remaining 26 hostages in the first phase of the deal and what their conditions are, whether they're alive or dead. They didn't do that, responding that Israel prevented the movement of displaced Palestinians from the south of Gaza to the north of Gaza. So we have mutual accusations here. This is the role now with the mediators of Qatar, Egypt, and the United States to make sure that this ceasefire holds and that both sides implement what they have agreed to do. Israel Israel is expecting that its pressure would result with the extra release of this Israeli hostage, Arbel Yehud, which I believe is very unlikely to happen. Hamas won't give anything to Israel for free. And Arbel Yehud is being held by one of the groups connected to the Islamic Jihad, not Hamas directly. That's the reason why she wasn't included in this release. There was a difference of opinion between Hamas and Islamic Jihad, apparently.
Now, the fate of tens of thousands of Gazans who were supposed to return home also hangs in the balance now. And comments from Donald Trump on Saturday kind of raised concerns that an even larger number of Gazans may not only not be able to return to their homes, but could be relocated to other countries. Is this just Donald Trump being Donald Trump, or do you think that this is part of a wider possible plan?
Well, it might be part of a wider possible plan, but it's not something that's possible. It's something, in fact, that's very dangerous, not only to the Palestinians themselves who are being treated by Donald Trump as if they were illegal aliens in the United States that Donald Trump plans to deport. These are people who are residents of Gaza for generations. They're, most of them, refugees from where Israel is today. You can't just pick these people up and move them like a piece on a chessboard. Not only that, it threatens the stability of the regimes of Jordan and Egypt, two countries that have peace with Israel. This is something that's not just done in the Arab world. This would be considered ethnic cleansing. And even though a majority of Gazans might want to locate to another place, there aren't other places that are openly willing to take them. And there is the Palestinian issue, which is at stake here, which is a very sensitive issue in the Arab world.
As a last question for you, sir, in the lead up to his inauguration, Donald Trump vowed to end these wars in the Middle East. But his rhetoric about Gaza this weekend, his decision to allow the U.S. military to deliver those 2,000-pound bombs to Israel, alongside the White House also calling for the Israeli military to indeed be able to extend its presence in southern Lebanon, seemed to suggest that Israel may be given free rein to do what it wants. Do you think that there will really be any serious checks on Netanyahu under Donald Trump?
We don't know. Donald Trump is completely unpredictable. We know that he wants to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. He did say twice on Inauguration Day and on election night that he would end wars, he wouldn't start new wars. He made sure that the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas take place. He sent his envoy, Steve Witkoff, to Doha and to Jerusalem to make sure that it happens. He's told Netanyahu that he wants the ceasefire agreement to move into phase 2. This will definitely lead to a conflict between Netanyahu and Donald Trump, as Netanyahu would face a breakup of his own governing coalition if he moves ahead with phase 2. So we don't really know what's happening here. There might be an understanding that Israel will make a provocation that will lead Hamas to break the deal and take the first shot, and then the Americans would give an okay to Israel to continue the war. But this is very fragile, very dangerous, very unpredictable. We're already dealing with a situation of tens of thousands of Palestinians killed in Gaza and more than 100,000 wounded, and almost 2 million people who don't have homes to return to. Even if these people have the right to move from the south of Gaza to the north of Gaza, when they get there, they won't find their homes there anymore. They're all rubble.
Indeed, an extremely explosive and unpredictable situation there. Thank you so much.